We got Brandon. Let's see. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Oh, beauty. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for joining, guys. I would assume the typical answers are going to be allocate more tags for that area, but you never know. Ross, brother, how are you? Nice to see you. I figured I'd just chat about some wolf hunting and stuff and see if you guys had any questions. And then I want to read this article that Globe and Mail. There's lots of places that have reported on this already about the federal government hiring folks from New Zealand, and there was another location. Again, I'll have to check the article, but ground operation as well as aerial operation to take out. I believe it was. I don't know actually what type of deer it was. Fallow deer, which I think is like a type of like a black-tailed deer. Beautiful little creatures. Yeah, pretty sideways though. Pretty sideways. And I mean, it's of course it's depending on how you look at it, right? I think we probably could have spent that money on other ways or reasons within to make the country better, but we could go on for hours and talk about that. But I think what I'll do is I'll just get into a little bit of wolf hunting stuff. And I think this is all new to me. I don't know if I can share my screen or because what I would like to do is I'd like to show a map of Red Lake and show you guys kind of where I started. I guess I could use my phone. Again, this is all new to me. Kind of show you guys where I began, the issues with that spot, and kind of where I moved throughout the years of kind of me wolf hunting and exploring this whole idea and like realm of wolf hunting. And I'm getting text messages, people tuning in, beauteous. So I think what I'll do is I'll just show you the first baiting spot that I ever did for wolf. I think I'll jump back before that. I moved up to Red Lake 2018, and beauty little spot, very very small town. And there's three smaller towns around Red Lake, or three or four. I mean, you have Ear Falls, which is 45 minutes south of Red Lake. You have Red Lake itself. You have Madsen. You have Starrett Olson, which is just outside of Madsen. And Madsen's about 15 minutes or so away from Red Lake. And then another about 10 minutes east of Red Lake is Balmertown. And then you go a little bit north of Balmertown, there's Koshner. So everything's kind of interconnected. There's these little townships, but they're all a part of the municipality of Red Lake. So I want to show you. The thing is this Red Lake is so far north, you don't have to go far to hunt really anything. There's moose that have been in town. There's deer that are in town. The reason the deer are in town is because the wolves have pushed them in. We've seen, well, me personally, I've seen wolves in Koshner. I've seen wolves in Red Lake. I've seen coyotes in Red Lake. Like I'm talking like downtown Red Lake. We've had bears, deer. I don't know about moose. I know we've had moose like right in Ear Falls before. So it just goes to show, right? I mean, we're surrounded by nothing. It's a mining exploration town. It's got a major hospital. The OPP polices the Red Lake, although it's very small. It's like 4,000 people. So the industry there is pretty. It's large, but on a scale of 4,200 to maybe 6,000 people in general. So my first thought process when I started wolf hunting, and this is when COVID began. COVID was like just one of those times where you're like, oh wow, I can't go to my house, and then you slowly realize that you can, and I did, and then you kind of there was a little bit of a balance there, right? So I was leaving home, doing my own thing, but you're a little bit hesitant to deal with other people. A lot of judgment going on there, right? But that was kind of the initial thought. Say, well, if I can't do anything with people, and no one wants to do anything in general because of this, then I'll start wolf hunting, and I'll start hunting alone. And yeah, I never thought for a moment that when you start wolf hunting, you know, you, typically you walk into a deer stand or like if you're moose hunting, right? You're in your spot before light, right? You're maybe an hour, 2 hours before light to settle in. Everything quiets down. There's not even birds awake at that stupid time in the morning for hunting, right? Um, and it never really crossed my mind, like where I was walking at night, but I'm also hunting wolves who are nocturnal and hunt at night. So in the beginning, I never really thought about this, and fear never really set in. Um, Walking into my wolf blinds, which is right on a bait site within 100 to 200 yards. So in the beginning, I just kind of was like gung ho, right? You're all pumped up, excited. You're seeing wolf tracks, you're seeing sign, and you just want to get in there and get her done. Ernie, yeah, nice to see you, brother. Is it near Mackenzie Island? Mackenzie Island has a ton of deer on it. Actually, there are a ton of trophy deer on Mackenzie Island. But you have to check the discharge map. It's kind of buried within the Red Lake municipality of Red Lake website. But if I find it, I'll try and send it to you. If you're curious about hunting Red Lake, kind of right outside town. But I think the west side of Mackenzie Island you can hunt, or the northwest side. The whole south side of the island, I believe, is pretty well off limits. It's within the no discharge area of Red Lake. But yeah, trophy deer, and I mean they know they're protected. I got a bunch of videos on my page there. Like I'm coming around and there's a bunch of deer. There's a big buck standing there, and then they go scurry up a hill. Yeah, Mackenzie Island, and there's wolves everywhere. We've the one guy that puts bread at the Bombertown Food Fair, or well, he does the whole area, IGA, everything. Um, he was telling me a story that when he lived, I can't remember the road now, but he had a fairly nice house, kind of at the very top of Red Lake, because Red Lake is just covered. I mean, the Northwest, it's covered in Canadian Shield, and Red Lake itself is uh, a little bit of a higher altitude depending on where you are, because of the rolling hills and just the boreal forest and just the territory, like just the ground around it is just like so vast and unpredictable. So he kind of lived at a higher altitude, but within Red Lake, so he overlooked Howie Bay. And Howie Bay is, if you look at it on Google Maps, there's a couple islands, but it's the main bay that all the float planes fly in and out of. And so he looked out one night, and it's a pretty well lit bay because there's all the lights around Red Lake, of course, and that Howie Bay is right in Red Lake, right? The IGA is right there, everything. And he sees this like large kind of dog canine, which at the time he didn't know what it was, but he put two and two together, dragging, and you could see like the blood on the ice and everything. So he's maybe 700 yards away, but plain view, full moon, can see everything, and it's a wolf dragging a deer across the ice. And the wolf had the killed the deer in Red Lake itself, right by the government docks, and then dragged it out to one of those main islands across from Whitehorse Island. So if you actually Google Map, you'll see where, like, it's really close to town. So anyway, so back to when I first started wolf hunting. I lived in Balmertown and had access to a snowmobile, and I knew wolf hunting. I didn't take it as an easy thing, but it was one of those activities that I Googled and I researched, and there's a multitude of information out there if you dig on it, but I find the information online really lacks for wolf hunting. Or you run into something where it's like 1999 and you have to purchase some PDF booklet of how to wolf hunt. Um, and I'm just not that kind of person. As much as I love learning and educating myself, um, I don't want to be sold a piece of PDF that's not needed. I'm sure it would have helped me at the very beginning, but I'm more of like a trial and error type person. So again, what I explained, there's moose in town, there's deer in town, there's wolves in town, for frig's sakes, there's coyotes in town, beautiful foxes. We're surrounded by nothing. So the cool thing about Red Lake, and I'll show you the first hunting spot. So here is Balmertown. There's Balmertown right there. And what I'll do is I'll just draw. Let's see, I have to find the location first. I'm just going to do a measuring point, and I'll show you. I don't even know if you'll be able to see this. Give or take right there. I don't know if you can see that blue line. There it is there. So there's Balmertown. There's the first spot that I ever baited. It's about, by way of Crowfly, it was about 4K from town. And on my way there, I checked my rabbit snares, which is very convenient. And it was easy because it was right outside Koshner. So I could just take the lake, take the highway, not necessarily the highway, but the trails beside the highway. And it was great. I thought it was a great setup. I actually didn't have a blind at all. I borrowed one of my buddies' white ghillie suits. It wasn't a real ghillie suit like a sniper would wear with the things covering your face and all the fancy, I don't even know what you'd call them. This was just a white outfit, white overcoat, very thin, and white pants that just went over your snow pants and your boots and everything. He was in the military and had just moved to Red Lake within that year or two. So I got to know him, and so borrowed his whites and put it to the test. And all I did is I found a downslope into a muskeg where it was all frozen. So it was kind of swampy, but in the summer, grass did grow there. It was accessible. You wouldn't be able to like ride a bike through it, but you could definitely like take a quick jaunt through to access the other side of this muskeg. So it wasn't completely entirely swamp. But the factor of me being up high, looking downward at a downslope at the time, didn't think anything of this. But that is like typically how wolves will come at a bait and will feed. So they'll typically like a downsloping area. They'll come down on into a bait and they'll circle that kind of like a wagon wheel. So if you picture a wagon wheel, they'll come in at all angles. And if the bait's in the center, that is where they're focusing. So each dog will come in on a wagon wheel. So me not thinking anything of it, those wolves were actually coming into my bait, not only from right in front of me, 250 yards away, to the right of me, to the left of me, and behind me. So that kind of puts me at a little bit of a disadvantage depending on the day and the timing, because I don't want wolves coming up behind me, an apex predator. But again, I was very new. I was new at this and I didn't think anything of it. At the time, all I knew was put a bunch of meat down at this downslope in this muskeg. The ravens and the birds are going to be at it. I know that for a fact. But I needed to cover it. So I get a bunch of spruce boughs, cover it up, which did its job. But I moved on to freezing the bait in large buckets and totes later on down the road. The main issue with that first bait site was first off, my positioning. Secondly, well, my positioning, because the wolves were coming in behind me and all around me, and depending on the day and timing, it's going to ruin your hunt. So if they come from behind you, they're going to see you or smell you way before. So you can't work the wind. Secondly, the ravens still tore apart the bait regardless. And third, the wolves that I were seeing was very inconsistent, and they were quite small. I don't know if that had anything to do with it being close to town. I have no idea, or just the general area. But shortly after I started to bait in that area, like 4 kilometers from town, they started a mining, well, on the ice mining exploration. So just kind of north of Balmertown, there's East Bay. There's Hoyles Bay, and it goes into East Bay. And East Bay, I think they're still doing it now this year. They were last. Mining exploration over the ice. So they would flood entire area, build up the ice more than an average year would build up naturally. And then they put all their stations and machinery and everything, and check for mineral deposits under the ice, where they typically wouldn't be able to get unless they had a large barge, which I think would cost more money. So a lot of disruption in the area. And that's the downfall of being too close to town. So I was getting wolves come in, I was getting coyotes come in, but it just wasn't what I expected. And my expectation, it's interesting looking back, because I'm not really sure what I was expecting, because this is all new to me. But it's sorry, I'm getting distracted here by texts. It was the start of like a true addiction. And lots of lessons learned when you're out hunting, right? This spot, really, it was just one of those things where it was kind of like I was out snowmobiling one day and I saw wolf tracks and wolf scat, because they had taken down a moose. I never actually found the carcass, but I think maybe they had pulled some hair off the back, ankles or something, trying to sever its Achilles or something. Typically, they'll go for the back legs, then they won't be able to walk. Their back hind legs collapse, and then the wolves like full on attack, right? And their back legs are the ones that can crush the wolf's skull. So that's why they go after those back hamstrings. So it looked like they had just tore a bunch of hair off in this area. And it was literally like, if the down slope's going into the muskeg, and if the muskeg's down here, all that sign was like right where it slopes down level. And then I was sitting up here. So again, like these wolves were coming and going. They were most likely on like their 2-week route. But yeah, lots of lessons learned there. And I ended up giving up on the spot after sitting for, I think, I don't know. I don't want to say it was more than a month. I think it was about 3 weeks. Because then that mining exploration came in. And the only thing I had coming around were fox, coyotes, which again was slim to none. You know, you might get one every couple days, and I think it was the same one over and over again. And then what really cut it for me was getting someone's dog on my bait site. like collar and everything. Like, I wish I had high definition trail cams. I could have read the tag on it. Um, the funny thing about that is I go, I sit, and then I'm like, hey, well, the trail, it's been minus 36 for the last 3 days. I better check the trail cam, put new camera batteries in, sorry. And so I check these photos at home, and I see this domesticated canine from someone's house. And so I send the photo to the conservation officer in Red Lake, and I said, "Hey, I'm wolf hunting, and I got this dog on my trail cam." And he was actually the one that kind of gave me that specific area. He had hunted probably 2 kilometers north of me, and ended up getting a shot at 2 wolves, but never downed one. Um, he All jokes aside, he actually knew who the dog was. So he lived in Koshner, and he's like, "Oh, that's so and so's dog," and that's it's I don't know what the dog's name was. I can't remember at this point, but yeah. So like there was a couple things there wrong with that area. Um, it just wasn't producing what I'd thought or expected from like kind of what I was reading. Um, so my expectations were a little bit high for just beginning this type of hunting, but um, I think that's a good thing. I think if you have high expectations going into anything, and if you don't allow these things to ruin your expectations, you're not seeing too many wolves. You're seeing lots of coyotes. You're seeing some random person's dog, um, and then I had a cross country skier come through my bait site. Then you have a mining exploration, right? So there's all these things adding up towards you that you think or you could take as a negative angle of being like, what's the point? Screw this, blah, blah, blah. Which in a sense I did. I totally just left that bait site and buggered off onto a different bait site. But that was the first step. And if I hadn't have taken that first step, I wouldn't be where I am today with the knowledge I have. And I mean, I can sit down with anyone and really like any type of wolf, um, even coyote, like it's really not difficult to hunt them. You just got to really hone in on whatever environment you're hunting in. If you're baiting, are you spot and stalking? Are you calling? Like, what is that? I think any technique works. A lot of the wolves that I've taken um, have been over a bait, but the 2 wolves that I did shoot prior were called in. I had just heard the pack, initiated the call, and I do calls just all through like just my mouth. So I take my gloves off, it's minus 41, it's stupid cold, and give a nice howl. And that howl has a lot to do with it, them coming in or not as well. And times of year. Typically I hunted when it got quite cold and there was ice. I never hunted early fall for them, because they're just coming back into pack formation. In the summer, they branch off and they'll usually do their own thing, but then they'll come together in the winter because it's so hard to hunt. Um, but the fact that calling alone helps and you don't need a bait. I mean, literally anyone under the sun can call in a wolf or a coyote. It's not difficult to do. It's timing, it's place, it's everything. Um, Again, you can get nitty gritty into like talking about what type of call to use and whatnot, but that's not really not that necessary. Um, the second bait site that I started was the bait site that kind of all those videos on my YouTube are kind of showcasing. I was out snowmobiling one day, and miracles, right? Just cruising around. I think I did some ice fishing that day, and I'm cruising through this. I'm actually on Red Lake, the main lake, and I cruise past this bay, and it's an open bay, and the open bay had this. It was interesting because it was all rock shore, and it had this peninsula coming out. And so I cruise in, and as I cruise in, there's this little bit of an opening that looked like a trailhead. And then to the right of that, there's a down tree. Um, and it was like this yellow tinge. It almost looked like when snowmobiles come up off the ice, off like a back lake, and they have to kind of go up a couple feet onto like a main trail, and you get the backspin of your track, and then it just reveals the dirt and sand underneath. So it looked like someone had been up with a snowmobile. So I cruise up there and I'm like going, I don't know, like I'm going pretty fast through this bay because there could be a lot of slush. And I see this like yellow tinge kind of like, it looks like a trail. And I think I hit it at like 20, 30K an hour, and it wasn't a trail. It was actually a little waterfall that the waterfall was more like a ramp than anything. Um, so I actually saw it at the last second, realized it was a wall of ice, just like a slide, picture of a slide of ice. And I just sent my snowmobile right up it. Ended up like going straight, like right into my handlebars purposefully. So I didn't flip backwards and have the sled land on me. But ended up going directly as I went up. I went back down, and I just was like, "Oh my gosh, the grace of God just saved me!" Like that was, yeah, scared the daylights out of me. But lo and behold, I ended up taking that trailhead, which I first saw, and I went up, and so you go into this bay, and it actually goes up. So there's where you are on the bay is a lower altitude, and then it slopes up, and there's a higher altitude into where the bush is. And there's a huge, massive ridge to the right of me. And as I go up this little trailhead, which was just an animal trail, there was this beautiful little pond. And this beautiful pond was built by, well, the pond wasn't built by beavers, but it had been closed off by beavers. And although that creek was still trickling and creating that slide that I tried to jump my snowmobile off accidentally, uh, it was still trickling, but there was a beaver hut right in the middle. And wolves love beavers. There was wolf tracks everywhere. Like I'm talking everywhere. They were all around the beaver hut, house, and then they just converged into one trail to the right side of the creek. And I was on the left side of the creek, so I knew right away I had a huge advantage because these wolves weren't accessing the trail I was using on the left side. They were accessing their own trail on the right for whatever reason. Um, Now I kind of know now why they were doing that is because their trail on the right side of the creek headed towards that ridge, that giant ridge. Um, and I don't know how tall that ridge was, probably, I don't know, 80 feet. But I mean, you could traverse it no problem with a good set of hiking boots on. In the winter, not so much because it was slippery. Um, but I just like fell upon this beautiful wolf hunting spot. And the cool thing is this beaver pond, which was again higher altitude, totally frozen. I could almost see right down the line because this beaver pond connected to a little creek, connected to another beaver pond, and so on and so forth. And on my map, I could actually take that, walk it, and I actually ended up walking about 6 or 7 kilometers of this little creek bed and beaver ponds. And it actually would take me all the way to just to the east of where I was, was all these old logging trails that were all closed up. So they had piled all these piles of dirt, and you couldn't access it by really anything other than maybe a snowmobile. So I ended up exploring that area. Tons of moose, tons of wolves, but they were moving through that old logging area, which was just off Suffolk Lake Road, coming down these beaver ponds right towards me, and then over down the ridge. Well, not so much down the ridge, but using the ridge as kind of a vantage point, looking down, never touching the ice, and then going back in towards Parker's Creek. And if anyone knows the Red Lake area, they're heading towards Parker's. There's tons of wolves in Parker's Creek. You can go there and walleye fish, and you know, I've seen, I think, I don't know if I have a video on my YouTube, but um, I was fishing with Franklin and Stan and Renee, my significant other, and I look over and Franklin, I mean, he's just like a wildcat. He's like, you know, 75 years old and he better eyesight than I do. He goes, "Are those wolves?" And he's looking. I got my binos out and I'm like counting 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, and then three more 10, 11, 12, black, gray, white, black, gray, all sorts of different colors. So there's tons of wolves in that area. Um, and they were around. I ended up finding that I baited it for about 48 hours. And I tell you, lugging all that bait up that little, like, I don't know, it was like maybe 100 feet of altitude. Um, it was difficult. It was hard. Frozen bait. It weighs like, I don't know, those huge Tupperware containers that you would put um, clothing in. Imagine that frozen with meat and water just to get it solidified, and then dragging that um, up pretty well a cliff into this beaver pond. Um, Russ, yeah, Russ White, yeah. School of the Hard Knocks is yeah, game is real. CG, my day, yeah, buddy. Nice to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Um, so yeah, this was kind of like my bread and butter spot, um, and I started to bait that area, and it was like within 48 hours that I ended up having a wolf come by, and I'll never forget this moment. Waking up in the morning, you know, like I don't know, I set my alarm for 3:30 in the morning or something like that. I remember, I can't even recall now. This would have been after the New Year's because I would have waited for the ice to be frozen. So it would have been late. Well, it would have probably been into February by the time I found this new spot and started baiting it. And the thing about February into March is like February is really when the wolves start to get, well, they start to try and find their mates essentially. Breeding season starts. They get all hot and bothered. They're all packed up. Their pelts are beautiful. They've been hunting now for a couple months after the summer season, and they've got their roots from last year done, or maybe they've expanded on their roots from last year and had new roots this year, finding new moose to kill, whatever. But February is good because it's good for calling. And I knew I had wolves there, and I had wolves on camera. They were hitting the bait, but they were still hesitant. Like they would walk right by the bait and they'd be looking over to it, and they'd walk, take a couple steps, look over to it, and then they just keep walking. So you knew whether it was my human scent, who knows? Like I'm lugging this bait up this cliff. Am I sweating on it? Is it my gloves? You know, like when I set my snares for rabbits, I wear the gloves, and then I wear the gloves when I bait wolves. So is there something there from my truck that they smell? I don't know. So after 48 hours, I knew there was wolves, so I ended up just going and taking the sled. It was about a 35 kilometer, 40 kilometer or so ride across the lake. Pitch black in the morning. I can't see anything other than my snowmobile headlights. Remember, I talked about fear in the beginning of this. Never really thought fear would ever be a thing, but you know, you're just going towards a goal, right? Which is the wolf hunt. So I'm out here, saw some beautiful northern lights on a lot of the hunts that I did early morning, sledding across the ice, and it's amazing, right? Because you're alone and you can take photos, but they don't ever do justice. So it's like just forever imprinted in my brain. Um, the northern lights before I would go wolf hunting. So show up. I would always park my sled right outside of the bay, and then I would walk into the bay along the shoreline, up the little cliff, and there was this little down tree. So you know how trees, obviously, you know trees. This is what trees look like, obviously. And then when they blow over, they take the ground with them, and you're left with almost like this beautiful uncovering mosaic of like branches, and not so much branches, but all the roots are exposed with rocks. Sometimes it pulls up huge rocks, whatever. Never found any gold looking at this, but what I thought is if I put my whites on and I shovel a little bit of snow up on this dirt, and then I sit with my back against the dirt, one, yes, the dirt's cold, the tree's cold. There's a rock exposed underneath, but I put a bunch of spruce boughs down, kind of like a seat, and I was able to rest myself. So I had a little bit of insulation between um, my clothing, which was like, it's -40 in the mornings, really, really, really cold. But I'm in whites. So I'm blending right in. I'm warm, but still, still shivering to death, if that makes sense to you guys. Um, and I'd always have a set limit. I never was able to sit for full days in the winter unless I was in a blind, and I never hunted blinds until I got smarter and wittier with my location of wolf hunting and everything. But I would always just be out in the exposed area with my whites on. So I literally felt like Jason Bourne, like sitting there. And at the time, I had my old 303 Lee Enfield, and yeah, it was invigorating just sitting there on this tree, waiting for wolves in the dark. Again, no fear at this time, no fear at this point. So I go in, and of course, you're crunch, 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 and I'm like 2 hours, maybe not 2 hours, maybe hour and a half, because I think it used to take me a lot more time to walk in because I wouldn't want to sweat. Control my sweat, sit down. I was about an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes before light or legal shooting light, which is so if it's light out at 7:30, you can shoot at 7, and then if it's dark at 5 p.m., you can shoot 30 minutes after dark, so you can shoot until 5:30. So here I'm all set up, get the gun out of the case, and of course the gun is just frozen, right? Metal, and just wood. So hands are frozen. You have to keep your hands not totally exposed. I had big black mittens on, but underneath those, I had good manipulative finger gloves. Still freezing my butt off, and I hear a pack of wolves off in the distance, and they're howling, and my hair's standing up. And this is the first time I've ever heard wolves before. In a distance and that close. And I'm saying, like, here I am in this beaver pond. And how I said earlier is I looked straight down this beaver pond, and I could go into another beaver pond by access of a little creek bed. And they were literally in like maybe the third beaver pond from me. Like if I'm the first one, they were maybe in the third one, screwing around, doing their things. So I'll be honest, I really didn't know what to do, because even still today, like I've learned, but back then I was always so hesitant, right? Because I was new to hunting, new to moose hunting, new to everything. And I'm like, do I call? Do I not call? What do I do? Do I do an injured rabbit call? Or do I just do a howl? So I ended up just taking my chances, let out a big howl, and they start responding back. And at this point, like I can hear, like when I open my mouth out there, like I can remember this. I opened my mouth and I could hear my heartbeat, like dun 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 dun. And obviously, it's like an internal, like you can sometimes hear your heartbeat beating internally. I think that's just what it was. But my adrenaline was just like phew, way up, like a rocket. Um, and I'm thinking, like, I still can't see anything. Like I'm lost in the dark right now. I got the gun out, but like, what am I looking at? There's nothing. It's like there's figures that I can see. They're not wolves. They're trees and bushes, but that's all I can see. And if anyone knows anything about shot placement and everything, obviously, like you have to know where that firearms being pointed where the round is going. And as much as I know that no one's probably on the other side of this beaver pond, is probably going to hit a tree, and you still have to be safe. And so I didn't feel comfortable with sitting there knowing that there's a pack of wolves that close and not being able to get a shot. Now I was lucky enough, or fortunate enough, where they quieted down for about 20 minutes. And then I let out another howl, and one came back and howled, and that was the wolf that ended up coming in towards me. He howled. We did two sets of howls each before he came back. So did the initial howl, or I heard them howling. Did my initial howl? They responded. It was about 20 minutes. Then I did another howl. I got a response by a single wolf, and we just kept talking back and forth. And then it took him another probably 20-25 minutes to get to where I was. And I mean, he came beaming in, like right where Beaver Pond 1, where I'm at, the second beaver pond, he's coming right for me. And I can see him going through the dead wood and shit. And I'm like, that's a wolf coming straight for me. And I'm sitting in my whites exposed. And he's probably, oh man, 100 yards away, if that. And this is where you guys are going to be like, oh, I can't believe this. I'm all amped up still. So the first wolf with my own two eyes, right in front of me. I called it in. There's the bait there, but they still hadn't hit it. They were just walking past it. And so I'm just slow motion, bringing my 303 up to my shoulder, just as slow as I can. And at this point, he's sitting down, he sits right down, and he goes to do another howl. So his head's going, and he's about to do another howl, and I'm up on target at this point. Now, Lee Enfields are zeroed at 200 yards. I know that now. At 100 yards, you just point and shoot, right? You point and shoot. Well, you still got to allocate. And when a wolf is not broadside, he's standing right in front of you. So I was going to just ping him right in the chest. Yeah, no, it went right over him. So take the shot, and believe it or not, instead of him running back towards the pack, he actually ran exactly where the other tracks were. So he ran around the beaver house and into where their main trail converged to the right side of the creek by the ridge over to Parker. So that was one of those things where you're just kind of upset, but you're also like, hey, that was pretty cool. That was pretty neat. So that was the second start of the addiction, is actually seeing the wolf and actually taking a shot at it. And yeah, it was interesting, because as I sat there and got my grips with reality back, I started to also think, so earlier I said that pinwheel or that wagon wheel. So here's a wagon wheel, and if the center, those wolves are going to come in every spoke. They're going to come in and converge on that bait, and that's how wolves essentially kill every animal that they can. They'll push islands, and they'll surround islands and push islands like humans do. Or humans learned to push islands for animals like moose from wolves. So they'll converge, and just like a wagon wheel, they'll come in at all angles, cut off all areas of escape. They're an apex predator. They're smart. They've done this for thousands of years. So the one thing I didn't really think about at that time was I'm sitting here exposed, similar to my first spot near Bombertown. These wolves are converging. Now, this one came straight for me. He was the only one howling back at me. He was a smaller wolf. He wasn't a large wolf. He was probably that year's wolf, like a yearling. He was probably born in the spring of whatever year that was, 2019, I guess. I don't know. I think 2019, 2020 is when I started wolf hunting. just before COVID, but he came straight for me. I take a shot and he runs off. But if I, the wild thing is of what I know now is if I would have just sat there, regardless if I shot my 303 or not, regardless of it was within 100 yards, everything around me within like a kilometer heard that, if not more distance, because the ice and everything it travels and whatnot. Um, just like when it's very calm on the lake, sound travels more. In the winter, sound just seems to travel like forever. It's wild. So you take a shot, and I should have known, like, just sit tight, like, just sit for another hour, sit for another 2 hours, because the chances of more wolves or that whole pack showing up and hitting that bait is high. Because I've learned at a point now that gunshots, they attract wolves. This is a tried, tested thing we've done at Franklin's, and it's only taken up until probably since I met Franklin to realize this. Is that whenever he would shoot, the wolves would show up. So if they were off on their 2 week route, and if they weren't back by a certain date, Franklin would typically just shoot up in the air, or he'd go grouse hunting or something. So he'd walk up his driveway and maybe shoot a grouse or whatever. Maybe he'd throw a clay in the air and fire it off. He lives off grid, just south of Red Lake. Boom! Within 1 or 2 days, those wolves would be right there. Um, and so the reason I say that, why I should have just sat, is because more wolves would have showed up. Every wolf that we've taken from Franklin's, a guest, he'll take a wolf. Boom, there's another wolf poking right back out. I mean, I have a video I just recently uploaded. I Franklin gave me a chance to fill my tags, and um ended up taking one at 318 yards, and literally a second black wolf pops up to the right of us, 224 yards away, at a large boulder rock where we bait. Just after I had taken that shot, like, I'm talking like within 30 seconds, maybe even less, that wolf popped back out, that second wolf. So yeah, like, and now it's interesting because not that gunshots attract deer, but the last 2 years deer hunting with one of my best buddies on Manitoulin Island, which I mean is chocked full of deer. There's tons of deer in Manitoulin. Um, the last 2 years, he's shot, filled his tag, texts us, and then we hear another as we're approaching, like, we're within a kilometer or so of his spot. We go to walk towards him, and he's downed another deer. Like, so I'm not saying gunshots provoke other animals to come in like deer, but when it comes to wolves, there's something about them hearing that, or at least in the Red Lake area. I can't talk for all wolves. Like, I don't want you guys to go out and just start firing off rounds and expect wolves to show up. But I think these wolves have, they're smart animals. They've clued into the fact that when there's a gunshot or a loud bang, if we go near that, there could be dinner, or they could be lunch or breakfast, whatever. And maybe it's a coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences. So it's just one of those things. So that's kind of like a little bit of a intro, like why I became a wolf hunter, was mainly because of COVID. So kind of a blessing in disguise. Keep me busy, keep my brain busy, keep my hands busy. Um, we all know how sideways COVID was, right? So, like, a lot of people, they use Netflix and other things to cope with that. Well, mine was the outdoors. Mine was out ice fishing. Mine was hunting wolves. Um, so yeah, quite the experience. Wolves are amazing creatures. I've learned so much about them, and I'm curious, um, for whoever is watching right now, like, what are a couple things that you want to know about wolves, or like just hunting in general? Like, I'll try and answer it my best. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes. Type something in the chat there and see. Just crazy. And I'm going to be, I think I'll probably go for New Year's up with Franklin, and I'll probably get another video going. See what happens. And I don't know if like I don't know if the viewers count is like slow. Like if someone comes in, I don't know if it's like right away, or if you leave, is it right away? Does it tell me? I don't know. It might be a little bit of a lag. Same with the chat. I think there might be a little bit of a lag, but Russ White, are you guiding for wolves? I've thought about it. Uh, I don't. I don't. I mean, I'm more than happy to tell anyone in any group of hunters about kind of what I've done and the techniques I use. I've covered a little bit here, but not entirely. I'll even share locations. I'll share hunting spots. I'll even tell them where to set their blind up, how to set it up. But yeah, like I mean, I'm an open book, right? I'm not here to like make money off keeping information. I think the hunting community, among many other communities, including like the weightlifting community and bodybuilding and stuff like that, because that's one of my interests as well. I think we need more of like conversation. And I think like I don't need to know your deer hunting spot. I don't need to know your wolf hunting spot, but I'm okay with you guys knowing like where I hunt wolves. It doesn't bother me because there's so many wolves in the Northwest. If I were to go to one of my spots and say, Russ White, you're hunting, I mean, that would be awesome. I would be like very honored. I'd feel like $1,000,000 that you were there hunting. And I'd probably hunt with you. I wouldn't be upset. There's people that are upset about like fishing spots and stuff. And I mean, so am I. I think there's certain fishing spots and lakes that you got to keep tried and true to yourself. But for the most part, I'm an open book. But yeah, Russ White, I think guiding, I leave it up to Franklin. Franklin doesn't do as much guiding now. Like he's 75. He guides, but it's more the setup he has and the setup that he's built over the course of 30 years are he has, what's the right word I'm saying? People don't believe Franklin. They don't believe his experiences. They don't believe his stories or his theories. When his theories aren't theories, they're factual, and they're based off his experiences. Just like the gunshot or the gun, shooting a firearm. In the last couple of years of knowing Franklin, he didn't clue into a fact that when he shot a firearm, the wolves would show up within a day or two. Him and I figured that out, and now it's a technique that we use appropriately. Remember, I talked back with like shooting in the dark. Yes, it's legal light. Yes, I have my firearm out because it's lawful. Like it's 7:34, and legal shooting light was 7:32. Well, I still can't see anything though, so you still have to be safe. So go sight in your shotgun or your 22. Make sure it's within hearing distance of wolves, and they'll show up. I don't doubt that. If you guys wanted to shoot a wolf, let me know. Like if you wanted to book in or something, like I could for sure book you in through Franklin. We have a ton of people coming. Like I think we only have 1 or 2 spots open for maybe February. I can't remember. But everyone that's come has had a shot at a wolf. Whether they miss or they hit is up to them. Um, that's just the luck of the draw. But like the wolves are there, and now is the time when they become way more active with the cold. So it's kind of it's interesting because the colder it gets, the more you feed them, the colder it gets, the more they're going to stay around. So the less they go on their 2 week little jaunts, because the reason they leave is because they don't have enough food, sufficient enough for them to survive. So when they go do those routes, the routes are, um, one location I found. This is a little bit off topic, but same on the same lines. Their routine of the 2 week thing, route down south of Ear Falls. It's called Red Bluff Creek Road. Good luck trying to find it. I'm sure you can find it. There's a couple different Bluff Creek roads. This one specifically, tons of deer, tons, but also tons of wolves. And I was never able to pattern these wolves. And it was probably about an hour and 20-minute drive. So it was kind of shitty because I just had my truck, so I was on foot. But hauling bait in, it was never consistent because I was never able to haul in enough bait to pretty well keep the wolves fed and them hunker down around and stay within that area. They were always on their route. So they'd hit my bait because they were passing through, but then they'd just bugger off somewhere else because of all the deer and fawn in the area. So um, that's one of those things you just got to pay attention to. But again, like when you're further north in Red Lake doesn't have deer unless they're in town, because when they're outside of town, they just get decimated. Not only by the environment, just like the deep snow, but the ice, because they can't typically walk on just sheer ice, nor can any ungulate or hoofed animal. They just slip and slide. So that's why they stay in town. So most of our deer population is in town or Mackenzie Island. Ernie's cabin. What about hunting with a camera? The wolf about to howl would have. Yeah, Ernie's cabin. First off, I'm grateful you're here, buddy, brother. Thank you for tuning in. I think we hit like maybe 10 people at one point here, which is pretty cool. I wasn't expecting anyone, so that's neat. Yeah, photography, interesting. I really don't see that being an issue, right? Like it's interesting tonight. Funny you bring that up. Let's just say that, because hit the gym, had to hit Home Depot, got home, had a quick shower, and as I'm shaving, like I'm getting ready for you guys, shaving my face. I'm shaving and I'm thinking, what if someone wants to go to Franklin's or hunt wolves, but they don't want to necessarily hunt them or like shoot at them, like shoot, you know what I mean? Like fire off of their rifle or my rifle or whatever. And I was just thinking a little bit about that, and obviously a lot more humane and not about hunting at all, but still within the same realm. Like I've watched a lot of wolves in my day. I've passed on dozens of wolves and not shot at them because they come in and maybe it's a female, or maybe I know it's the mama of the pack, and she's just this big friggin' brute with big belly. Um, there was a point in November I had a big female come in, um, and she was like huge, like just huge, and I knew she was mama bear, not a bear, but like mama bear as in like the mom of the pack. And this was at a different baiting site just south of Franklin, and I just sat there and watched her. It was awesome. Like I just saw her head in the bush. Like there was a ton of trees on the tree line, and where I was sitting, the area I was in is it must have been planted, like the trees must have been planted in rows because it was just for miles. And she's poking her head out, and I just saw her head, and I just saw, so for her head's here, and I'm looking from my blind. I just see a, and I just see her nose, the black tip of her nose move. Get my binos out. Yeah, it's a wolf. She comes out, takes a look at the bait, scares all the ravens off, starts jumping and playing with the ravens and stuff. Like, it was pretty cool. It was awesome to watch. I just didn't have a camera. Like, I had my phones and stuff, but I wasn't able to zoom in and get that quality imagery, right, that you want for photography, or like some people do 4K video of animals. Like, that would be unreal. So yeah, Ernie, I thought about that, man, and I'm gonna talk to Franklin, uh, because why not? Like, I don't know if anyone would pay to come to Franklin's to, like, photograph wolves. Um, I don't doubt that you would. Would people pay? I don't know. And then if they pay, like, how do you deal with? I don't know. Like, not everyone agrees with hunting, right? So, are they able to kind of? I guess it depends on where they sit on the hunting thing, right? If they wanted to show up and take photos and leave, and that's fine, that's cool. But sometimes people want to, like, put themselves in situations to maybe try and change other people's minds. And I feel like if we had some random photographer going to a, like, hunting lodge, they might, I don't know, maybe I'm just assuming. I think you would have to be, like, hunter friendly. But there is a guy in Kenora. He's more of a fisherman, but he's mentioned that he wants to hunt wolves. But based on his, like, he literally is a fisherman, like, career choice. That's what he does for a living. YouTube, everything. Um, if he does a wolf hunt and shows all that, there are a certain, I mean, there's a ton of people that they don't want you killing deer, they don't want you killing moose. But if you touch a wolf, holy man, like, death threats. Like, I've gotten them from people I went to high school and college with. Like, people don't just, they don't understand, and they don't want to educate themselves on certain topics. Um, to each their own. But this guy in Kenora, if he films a wolf hunt, um, who knows, like, what his viewer count would say or do, right? So maybe the angle for him is more like, hey, dude, drive from Kenora, come to Red Lake, and just bring your cameras. Don't bring a rifle. Like, just we'll do the baiting. We'll do the whole experience. I mean, 90% of the time when I'm at Franklin's, I'm just having fun. We're baiting, we're checking trail cams, like, it's the whole experience. So we'll give that to whoever the photographer is, and give you the full experience, and you can, whatever, do what you want, whether it's photos, video, whatever. Um, yeah, I don't think there's an issue with that at all. As long as the person or the photographer is, like, on board to, live that way for a certain number of days. Because we've had hunters show up for, they don't really know how long they're going to stay, and the wolves, like, they show up, they come down the driveway of Franklin's, and the wolves are like right there. They get out of the truck, and I go, "Hey, watch this," and I give a howl, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I say, Look across the bay," and they're like, and all these wolves are just standing there, like, like, looking over at us, like, what the heck was that? So yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But then I've been at Franklin's where I've been there for 3 or 4 days, and they don't show up, and then the moment I'm about to leave, there they are out feeding. So obviously, like, hunters usually stay for about a week. Sometimes they stay for two, but normally the way we've been running for the last couple of years, other than COVID, almost every hunter who's showing up within 4 days have seen and taken a shot of wolves. So it's either like the first day they show up, the second day, or within the next 2 days. Yeah, so pretty cool. Ernie's cabin, mount a camera on a gun stock, prize for the best shot. Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty phenomenal, amazing photos that Franklin has from his trail cams. Um, they're like um, eagles with like T-bone steaks in their claws. Like, yeah, pretty cool. Like, I can only imagine if you had a good camera and you set things up nicely. Um, Even if you were on the dock or in a cabin, I mean, if you had a good enough lens, oh man, you'd be able to take some beauty friggin' photos and video. Um, yeah, that kind of it piques my interest, Ernie. And I'm gonna talk to Franklin about photography and maybe getting someone to come up to do photography because I think that'd be a hit. That'd be a huge hit. Because I mean, who's to say who can say you regularly talk to wolves and see them? I mean, no one ever. I've never heard that in my life. Pretty unique. Russ White, fantastic chapter of an unwritten book. Yeah, Night Brother. Yeah, drive safe. Make sure you buckle up. Merry Christmas. Yeah, unwritten book, eh? Yeah, Tales of the Wolf Hunter. Yeah, you never know. Who knows? Um, I thought about doing like a PDF or something, not selling it, but just giving out for free. Um, that's who knows. I don't know. I would I would rather instead of putting a PDF out about how to hunt wolves, I would rather put together a video series with Franklin explaining how to wolf hunt. But then again, at the same time, like I don't want to take away from what Franklin does, but I mean, he has what he has, and he's got a heck of a business going there. And I mean, he's retired. He's never been busier, but yet he's retired. Let's take a look at this poll. Spending almost $1 million to kill deer with helicopters and AR-15s is not right. What would you do? So no one said hire a private helicopter and use AR-15s. That's good. Like if it was for hogs, like that's pretty cool. I know it looks pretty neat, but I don't know. For deer, it's just I don't know. That's sideways. The winners allocate more tags for that area, and then the last is leave them be. Yeah, I think like I don't really understand the issue. It's a Canadian national park. Why do you have to do anything with the wildlife? I thought that was the point of national parks. But what do I know? Um, if we can tranquilize wolves, tranquilize grizzlies, black bears, I mean, you name it, it can be done. And relocate these animals. Why can't we do that with these deer? Or allocate tags, like the poll says. Allocate tags and allow people to hunt them ethically. And I know in the article it did say, or several articles that were written between yesterday and today, they did state that there were ground hunters and there was aerial hunters. There was an individual in a helicopter. They were using AR-15s, stuff or whatever you want to call AR-15 styled rifles, AR-15s. Supposedly they had suppressors and 30-round magazines on them. All three of those are prohibited devices in Canada. But again, what do I know? When you're hired by the government, I guess you're kind of like a rules for thee, none for me type attitude. But and they hunted at night, which was like I don't know, man. that's just sideways. Like how can we throw? It's almost a joke. You know what I mean? Like they ban all these firearms and they tell us, like Trudeau literally said, you don't need an AR-15 to hunt deer. But first off, like that makes my brain hurt because you couldn't to begin with. Um, and secondly, I don't like. There's lots of people that do hunt deer with AR-15s in the states. I'm not saying it's not a rifle that's going to take a deer down. I shoot deer with 223. There's zero issues. Um, but yeah, it's just ironic how he says that, and now this happens. So a lot of me just doesn't really care anymore. But it was just one of those topics where, like, oh, I have to bring this up because of how sideways it is, and just double standard all around. I just want to check. Yeah, so it was black native. So Parks Canada had also said that native black-tailed deer would likely be killed during the eradication process, but the population is expected to reestablish itself on the island. Well, I don't really understand that. If they're going to come back, why do you need to eradicate them? Harvesters recovered 1,800 pounds of meat. Parks Canada, they had staff, First Nations, harvesters worked usable. Da, da, da. So that I think that's the thing is like uh, they probably feel like it's a good. They probably feel it's the right thing to do because they donated all the meat to like First Nation communities. But I think the better thing to do would just allocate tags and allow people to hunt them ethically, like we normally do. Um, yeah, that just doesn't make sense to me. Ernie's Cabin for the Wild Wolves videos. You're right. The channel would take off. Yeah, man. I think it would too. I have even had an idea of not a trail cam, but like a webcam, and it being set up somehow to my YouTube channel that is just a constant live feed of the wolves. But the issue with that is Franklin's is off grid. Um, so he does have the generator running and stuff. Like he's got Wi-Fi and stuff when he wants it. But when he turns the generator off, like it's off. Like you're playing board games and lighting candles. Um, and it's an amazing way to live, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's awesome. Um, but having something run like that 24/7, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to. My cousin's pretty tech savvy with that stuff. Maybe I'll look into that with him and see. Um, but yeah, like I think imagine a live feed of Franklin's wolves like coming into feeding. Um, the sun sets, the sun rises. Well, you wouldn't get the sunrises, but you'd get the sunsets. Um, I think that would be pretty cool, and I think you'd be able to clip out certain material from the video and put it into like a longer format video of just like wolves, right? Because there'd be a lot of dead space. The wolves aren't always on the ice, um, but it seems like some days they are. They are just like there constantly. But yeah. Anyways, I mean, I could quite literally talk all day long about wolf hunting. I'll probably do. I'll probably do more of these. Um, they're pretty neat. I have to get back on posting more. Um, but with like buying the house and kind of moving and everything, it's been a busy. Well, since the summer, it's been busy. Um, but that's no excuse. I got a guy just outside Thunder Bay. I think he's by past lake area, like past Shunya towards Nipigon. And I met him. He actually did some work on my well, and him and I got talking about wolf hunting. And he's like, "Oh, I got wolves. I threw my deer carcass there last year, and um, yeah." He's like, "We had wolves coming in. I was scared for the dog, and so I took his number. I said, well, if you want any wolves taken out, let me know." And I texted him. I said, "Hey, do you got any wolves?" And he said, "There's no wolves around right now, but we got lots of snow in Red Lake. We got lots of ice, but Thunder Bay area, well, Dryden's the same way. Dryden's got some snow, but then you come further east towards Thunder Bay, Nipigon, and there's no snow. Like I think it's like 2 or 3 degrees. Um, so yeah, I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I think once things freeze up in Thunder Bay, Buddy's going to have wolves coming in, no problem. And I think I'll probably go hunt outside Thunder Bay with him and his son and see if we can smack one, because he was very interested in the techniques and everything that I was talking about, and just like, even like that downsloping that bay, and then it downslopes into the bay, and how they come like a wagon wheel. So if you just think a little bit further ahead of yourself, um, in regards to hunting wolves, like typically you'll end up connecting with one. But yeah, Ernie's cabin, you'll figure it out. Used to hunt, but I don't anymore. I don't have the heart for it. Yeah, buddy. Merry Christmas. I know I'm getting to that point, man. I just was saying to my one of my good buddies, unless it's for meat, I don't know if I'll harvest any more wolves, but we'll see. I don't know. I think it's dependent on how many there are and how many are coming around, and how ignorant they'll get, because uh Franklin ended up going and baiting. I think it was about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. He was baiting. Um, and I always tell him, like, bring a rifle, man. Like, bring a rifle, and he knows. But typically, he'll bring a paddle with him. Don't ask me why. It just Franklin. Even when we're going and tracking a wolf that's been shot with blood trail, like, he's got his paddle. Like, I'll whack you. Like, if he's got to whack a wolf with his paddle, like, he will. Um, Not that he's done it before, like, but typically, like, he doesn't bring a firearm, because usually I have one or one of his guests. So this time he was going to bait wolves. He was alone. His wife was at work, and he ended up bringing his 22 250. And so he said he didn't even he was carting the bait back in his sleigh and pulling it. And the way he pulls it is like, he kind of wraps himself, like, he'll wrap the cordage up and then back around his neck, and it'll come around. So it kind of, I don't know, kind of comes here, the rope's here, but it's around his neck. I don't know. That's the way he does things. So he's kind of wrapped up in this. And so he stops to take a breather, and he looks over to his right, and about like 13 yards away, let's just call it 10 yards away, there's this wolf, like, hunkered down, just staring at him, like, flat, tail's not wagging. He's just standing there, or sitting, like, laying there. And so Franklin, like, just immediately, the dog goes to take off and, like, kind of presses up his chest up, and Franklin takes a shot and hits him right in the chest. Franklin's fear was, okay, this wolf is waiting for me to bait, but is he waiting for me to feed him, or is he waiting for me to be, like, at the bait site? Now the bait site is his food. Now that is his hunting ground. It's not Franklin's. So what's going to happen there? What risks am I taking? Is that wolf going to attack me? I know that sounds wild, but um, we have had wolf attacks in Red Lake before. I don't know. So he ended up getting a wolf. So yeah, it's one of those things that just, like, always take a firearm with you. Um, like, of course, it's not for self defense. It's for hunting, but at the same time, like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to allow a wild animal to take advantage of an opportunity to take a chunk out of my ankles. Um, which, again, sounds sideways. Well, you're baiting them, so whatever. But whatever, to each their own. Um, Thanks everyone for popping in. It's already been an hour and 22 minutes. I think I'll probably do another one of these at another point and talk about more like wolf hunting techniques as far as like so calling and details about that, timing of the year, so seasons, um, like when it opens in September 15th, it opens, March 31st it closes. So you have pretty well 2 years to hunt wolves. I can talk about that. I can talk about how you can take two wolves every year. So two wolves, and so technically like two wolves in 2023, two wolves in 2024, but it's the same season. If that makes any sense for you guys. Um, I can even just talk a little bit more about the baiting site where I was so successful, and I can show you guys also where that bait site was. Um, Again, I don't care if you go use that bait site. I've told multiple people to go do that and set it up there, but I don't think anyone has. So again, it's one of those things. Like if you have the information, if you know there's wolves there, if you want a wolf, go do it. Just put the time in. Like anything in life, right? Um, but yeah. Anyways, I think we hit about like 10 viewers. That's beauty. But yeah, I'm gonna sign off for now, guys. I appreciate everyone stopping by. Love you all. Merry Christmas, and yeah, have a great night. Cheers.